In the crucible of Europe, empires clashed. The very ground trembled with the thunder of war. A brutal winter had already tested their resolve, leaving behind a stark, frozen monument to human suffering. One man, a force of nature, bent the continent to his will, forging an empire from chaos. How could a single, ambitious general bring an entire continent to the precipice of total war? His shadow stretched across Europe, threatening centuries of established power and ancient dynasties. From the Rhine to the Danube, his grand army had redrawn borders with every decisive victory. Nations reeled under the relentless pressure of a new French hegemony, challenging the old world order. But not all would cower. A formidable new alliance was forged, determined to halt his advance. For France, the stakes were existential. Continued victory meant empire. Defeat meant ruin and invasion. Prussia, haunted by past glories, risked everything to reclaim its honor and defend its sovereign territory. Their proud army, though steeped in tradition, would soon face a brutal reckoning with modern warfare. To the east, the vast Russian Empire, led by Tsar Alexander, stood as Napoleon's greatest challenger. Russia's vastness and formidable army represented the ultimate barrier to Napoleon's continental ambition. From opulent palaces to desolate battlefields, Europe held its breath, awaiting the inevitable confrontation. Napoleon's relentless drive for absolute supremacy pushed his armies to their limits across thousands of miles. His war machine, honed by years of conquest, was an unstoppable tide threatening to engulf all resistance. Strategic chess games played across vast distances would determine the destiny of millions. Every soldier, every general, every ruler knew that the coming clash would reshape the world forever. Two titans, France and Russia, were on a collision course. Only one could emerge victorious. The stage was set for a decisive battle, a culminating moment that would define an era of conquest. His strategic genius would be tested against an enemy as vast and formidable as the land itself. This is the story of Friedland, where Napoleon faced his ultimate foe and delivered a shattering blow. The year is 1806. Europe still reeled from Austerlitz, Napoleon's strategic masterpiece, forever changing the continent's balance. Napoleon, the undisputed master of France, now cast his colossal shadow across a terrified and fractured continent. His dominance was absolute, his will law. Emperors bowed, kingdoms fractured, and new client states emerged. This unchecked power, however, sowed the seeds of fresh resentment, a defiance bubbling beneath the surface. Across the fragmented German states, French hegemony felt increasingly suffocating, a threat to ancient traditions. For Prussia, Austerlitz was a humiliation they hadn't directly endured, but its consequences felt deeply personal. The once mighty army of Frederick the Great had seen its prestige wane, a shadow of its former formidable self. Prussian nationalism, fueled by an insult to their honor, began to stir, demanding a forceful response. Far to the east, the Russian Empire, though defeated, remained a potent force, wary of French expansion. Despite their losses at Austerlitz, the Russian bear was merely wounded, not broken, its spirit unyielding. The shared fear of Napoleon's insatiable ambition began to forge unlikely alliances across the European powers. Thus, the Fourth Coalition began to form, a desperate, final stand against French dominance across the continent. Prussia, chafing under a peace treaty that reduced its influence, took the lead in this precarious new alliance. Driven by popular demand and a potent sense of national pride, the king felt compelled to act. He believed his newly reformed army, untested but eager, could challenge Napoleon's seemingly invincible Grande Armée. Against the advice of many, Prussia issued an ultimatum to France, sparking open conflict once more. Russia, already committed to containing Napoleon, swiftly pledged its support to the burgeoning Prussian cause. For Tsar Alexander I, French expansion into German states represented a direct threat to Russian security interests. He saw the escalating French power not just as an insult, but a fundamental challenge to the European order. Thus, the stage was set. Prussia and Russia, united by fear and ambition, stood ready to face Napoleon. The early campaigns of 1806 began with Napoleon's characteristic speed and overwhelming military precision. The Grande Armée, a master of maneuver, swiftly advanced into Prussian territory, seeking a decisive confrontation. Prussian forces, still using antiquated tactics, were outmaneuvered from the very start, losing strategic ground. Napoleon masterfully divided his forces, preparing a trap for the unsuspecting Prussian command and their generals. October 14th, 1806, two decisive battles erupted simultaneously. Jena, where Napoleon confronted the main Prussian army, and Auerstedt, where Marshal Davout's single corps faced the Prussian king and their best generals alone. In both engagements, French military genius, discipline, and superior tactics utterly shattered the Prussian resistance. The defeat was absolute, catastrophic. Prussia's proud army, its command structures, simply ceased to exist. Within weeks, Napoleon's forces swept across Prussia, capturing Berlin and eliminating it as a significant power. With Prussia crushed, the formidable Russian army now stood alone, the last great power confronting Napoleon. The winter of 1807 descended upon Eastern Europe, ushering in a brutal new chapter of Napoleonic warfare. Napoleon, ever ambitious, pressed his grand army eastward, deep into the unfamiliar, frozen heart of Prussia. Opposing him, the resilient Russian army, hardened by their homeland's cruel embrace, prepared for a merciless fight. This was a campaign unlike any before, where the very elements became as formidable an enemy as any army. Sickness, frostbite, and hunger ravaged the ranks. The cost of war measured not just in blood, but bitter suffering. Logistical nightmares plagued both sides. Supply lines stretched thin, threatening to unravel entire armies. Scattered clashes erupted, testing the resolve of men, each brutal encounter a grim prelude to the coming storm. By early February, the forces converged near Eylau. Destiny's stage was set upon a frozen, unforgiving canvas. Strategic genius met stoic defiance. Commanders on both sides knew this engagement would be profoundly decisive. February 8th, 1807, the dawn broke cold and grey over Eylau. A day of unimaginable horror awaited. The Grande Armée surged forward, their initial push attempting to break the formidable Russian lines immediately. But the Russians held fast, their artillery tearing into the French formations, an iron wall of defense. A relentless artillery barrage from both sides turned the field into a maelstrom of fire and fragmentation. Infantry charges plunged into the enemy, a desperate, close-quarters struggle for every frozen inch of ground. Waves of cavalry, French and Russian, crashed together, a swirling vortex of steel, blood, and animal fury. Then, a cruel twist of fate. A blizzard swept in, plunging the brutal battle into a whiteout frenzy. Visibility vanished. Commands were lost. The battle devolved into confused, desperate fighting in the freezing fog. Casualties mounted at an unprecedented, horrifying rate. The field transformed into a ghastly charnel house. Wounded men froze to death where they fell, their cries swallowed by the wind. A living nightmare unfolded. Even Napoleon's genius was tested. His grand army, battered and bruised, struggled for every hard-won advantage. Yet the Russians, incredibly, refused to break. Their stubborn defense denied Napoleon any decisive breakthrough. As darkness fell, a grim tactical stalemate had settled. Neither side could claim a clear, definitive victory. The morning revealed the true cost. Eylau was not a triumph, but a testament to unimaginable shared suffering. Napoleon surveyed the carnage, a rare moment of doubt etched on his face. This was no glorious victory. Strategically, Eylau yielded little for such immense sacrifice. A Pyrrhic battle with staggering human cost. Both armies were utterly exhausted, their fighting spirit severely tested by the relentless, brutal winter campaign. A period of uneasy regrouping followed. Both exhausted armies retreated, desperate to rebuild their shattered forces. The Russian army, though bloodied, showcased incredible resilience. They would not be easily broken. Napoleon, despite the horror, remained resolute. He would not stop until this arduous war was finally ended. As winter thawed, A more decisive summer campaign loomed. The stage was set for the next, inevitable clash. After Eylao's bitter stalemate, 1807 dawned with an uneasy calm. The war, however, was far from over. Napoleon, scarred but resolute, sought not just victory, but the complete destruction of his Russian foe. His grand army, though depleted, spent spring recuperating. New recruits bolstered ranks, preparing for vengeance. East Prussia became a chessboard, with two titans poised for a decisive summer campaign. All eyes were on Napoleon. At his headquarters, Napoleon meticulously planned. Eylao's lessons forged a new, ruthless strategic vision. He would avoid another bloody stalemate. A swift, crushing blow was needed to end this relentless war. His objective: lure the cautious General Bennigsen into a position where retreat was impossible, then annihilate. The Grand Army, revitalized and reinforced, began its inexorable march. Every man understood the stakes. Orders flew across the theater, a complex symphony of movement designed to mislead and trap the enemy. The summer campaign of 1807, an intricate ballet of maneuver and misdirection, had officially begun. French columns advanced, their true intentions masked by clever feints, drawing Russian attention elsewhere. Bennigsen, ever cautious, tracked the French. But Napoleon's diversions made predicting his main thrust impossible. Russian outposts reported conflicting movements, sowing confusion within Bennigsen's high command. A grand strategic dance unfolded across the plains, each general testing the other's resolve and foresight. French cavalry probed enemy lines, gathering vital intelligence, confirming Bennigsen's evasive nature. The terrain itself would become a silent, crucial player in the unfolding drama of this summer campaign. Initial skirmishes erupted, sharp and brutal, as vanguards clashed, testing the strength of opposing lines. Probing attacks and rapid engagements sent vital, often conflicting, reports back to both commanders. Cossacks, masters of guerrilla warfare, harried French flanks, disrupting supply lines and scouting efforts. Meanwhile, French light infantry secured key positions, tightening the noose around Bennigsen's freedom of movement. Napoleon meticulously pieced together the puzzle. Bennigsen's cautious movements confirmed his growing desperation. Bennigsen, pressed by Napoleon's relentless advance, began seeking a secure, defensible position along the Alais. The Alais River, a natural barrier, offered potential refuge, a chance to halt the French tide. Friedland, a small town on the Alais's western bank, held the key to a crucial river crossing. Considering his options, Bennigsen faced a critical choice: retreat or make a stand against Napoleon. His army, vulnerable and exposed, needed a strong defensive line. Friedland's position seemed inviting. Driven by logistics and perceived opportunity, Bennigsen made a fateful decision: cross the Alais. Russian vanguard units began their crossing, establishing a bridgehead on the river's eastern bank. Division after division committed itself, pouring across the narrow bridges into the confined plain. With the Alais River now at their backs, Bennigsen's army had entered a precarious, exposed position. News of Bennigsen's audacious move reached Napoleon. He instantly recognized the colossal, fatal error. The terrain around Friedland was not a refuge, but a deadly, natural trap for the Russian army. The Alais River, winding sharply, restricted any easy retreat. Forests on either flank sealed the plain. A deep ravine, the Mill Stream, further divided the battlefield, creating dangerous choke points. Bennigsen had trapped himself, his army confined in a natural amphitheater, awaiting Napoleon's judgment. This was the decisive engagement Napoleon had meticulously engineered. The Russian bear was now cornered. French cannons, moving into position, would soon dominate the enclosed battlefield, unleashing hellfire. On the flanks, French cavalry prepared to cut off all escape routes, ensuring no Russians survived. The Russians, oblivious to the coming storm, held their ground, their backs to the unforgiving Alais. Napoleon's genius recognized Bennigsen's blunder, transforming a defensive position into a tactical masterpiece. As dawn broke over Friedland, the stage was set for one of Napoleon's most devastating victories. The sun, rising above the Alais, illuminated a battlefield primed for a catastrophic, one-sided conflict. Napoleon's Grand Army, a coiled spring, waited. The moment of reckoning for the Russian bear had arrived. Bennigsen's fatal decision at the Alais had inadvertently created the perfect trap for his entire army. June 14th, 1807. A new day dawned over Prussia, but brought with it not peace, but the promise of cataclysm. The air crackled with anticipation, a silent tension before the storm of cannon and musket fire would ignite. Russian forces, unaware of Napoleon's proximity, massed near Friedland. They believed they faced only a vanguard. But the emperor, master of deception, had orchestrated a trap. His grand army was now gathering, silently. As the sun climbed, Napoleon's legions began their relentless march, their presence a harbinger of doom. Then, the silence shattered. The first artillery barrages tore through the dawn, signaling the battle's grim commencement. Russian surprise turned to desperate action. Their initial probes met fierce French resistance, igniting the front. Across the Alais River, advance elements clashed. French light infantry engaged, setting the stage for a grander confrontation. The opening exchanges were brutal, a savage dance of lead and steel as both sides tested the other's resolve. The drumbeat of war intensified, signaling the full commitment of forces, plunging the battlefield into chaos. Initial engagements saw courageous Russian cavalry charges, met by the unyielding, disciplined squares of French infantry. Artillery duels raged, tearing gaps in formations, each shell a testament to the sheer destructive power unleashed. Through the smoke and fury, French officers led from the front, their resolve inspiring their troops to relentless action. Russian courage was undeniable, their soldiers fighting with ferocious tenacity, refusing to yield precious ground easily. The battle quickly devolved into a maelstrom of close-quarters combat, where individual bravery and training proved paramount. As the morning wore on, Napoleon's strategic genius became apparent. French corps deployed with ruthless precision. Foremost among them, Marshal Lannes, the Roland of the army, prepared his valiant Fifth Corps for the inevitable storm. The French deployment was a symphony of coordinated power, each corps moving to its designated position with practiced ease. Napoleon's grand design was clear: to fix the Russian army in place, then envelop and crush them utterly. Every movement was calculated, every deployment a step towards the inevitable conclusion of this devastating encounter. Marshal Lannes' corps bore the brunt of the early Russian assaults, a heroic stand against overwhelming numbers. Wave after wave of Russian infantry crashed against Lannes' tenacious lines, threatening to engulf his embattled position. Lannes, ever the warrior, moved among his men, his presence a beacon of defiance, bolstering their fading strength. French guns roared without pause, their concentrated fire tearing through Russian ranks, buying precious moments. In the village of Posthanen, the fighting was savage. Lannes' men fought for every house, every desperate foothold. Despite heavy casualties, the French banner still flew, a symbol of their unwavering resolve in the face of annihilation. This was a stand of epic proportions, a testament to courage, as Lannes' men held a crucial line, outnumbered but unbroken. Every soldier became a hero, every rifle shot a plea for survival, as the Fifth Corps absorbed the enemy's fury. Through the smoke and din, the fight continued relentlessly. Lannes' iron will kept his exhausted soldiers from buckling. His heroic tenacity bought precious hours, a lifeline for Napoleon's approaching legions, turning the tide of fate. Every minute Lannes' men held was a gift, allowing Napoleon's main force to converge, like a coiled spring. The emperor's other marshals, guided by his strategic brilliance, moved swiftly to their preordained positions. Napoleon watched with keen satisfaction. The trap was set. The Russians were now fully committed and exposed. The arrival of additional corps shifted the balance irrevocably. The tide of battle was about to dramatically turn. The Grand Army, now fully assembled, stood ready to unleash its devastating, coordinated might upon the Russian lines. French tactical superiority was on full display. Rapid maneuvers and swift adjustments baffled the Russian commanders. The precision of French artillery, moved with unparalleled speed, rained down relentless, destructive fire upon the enemy. Coordinated cavalry charges, executed with masterful timing, shattered enemy formations, turning resistance into flight. Napoleon's generals, veterans of countless campaigns, executed his complex strategies with devastating efficiency and skill. The gradual encirclement began. French divisions inexorably closed in, tightening their grip on the Russian army. Realization dawned upon the Russians. They were ensnared. Retreat routes across the Al River were fast disappearing. With his full might brought to bear, Napoleon watched as his grand army moved in for the decisive, crushing blow. The air filled with the screams of men and the roar of cannon as the Russian positions began to crumble under pressure. The Russian bear, once defiant, now recoiled under Napoleon's relentless vice. Friedland would be its reckoning. The stage was set, a vast expanse awaiting the crescendo of battle. French forces prepared for their decisive strike. Napoleon, ever the strategist, saw the weakness, his gaze fixed upon the trapped Russian army. The trap was sprung. Unaware of the full magnitude of their peril, the Russian line stood. Friedland was about to become their inferno. The command came down: target the heart, target the escape. French artillery prepared for its merciless work. With grim efficiency, the heavy guns were primed. A storm of iron and fire was moments away from unleashing devastation. Then, the first salvos ripped through the quiet. The earth trembled as Napoleon's grand battery opened fire. Iron rain descended, tearing mercilessly into the Russian ranks. Each projectile brought chaos and terrible finality. The concentrated fire was a hammer blow. Russian courage fractured under the relentless, overwhelming French artillery barrage. Fear etched onto every face. The Russian bear roared, but its voice was drowned by the thunder of cannons. Wave after wave, the French maintained their devastating fire. This was more than battle. It was an annihilation. Order dissolved into desperate struggle. Russian lines crumbled, exposed and vulnerable to the relentless bombardment. Valiant officers struggled to stem the tide of terror, but courage alone could not defy such overwhelming firepower. Even their colors fell, a testament to the savagery. Hope dwindled under the relentless, crushing French offensive. The ground became a graveyard. Thousands lay broken, silent witnesses to the inferno consuming their army. The Russian line shattered, an entire army breaking under the sustained, punishing weight of French cannon fire. Now, the infantry. Marshal Ney, with his legendary ferocity, led his corps into the heart of the storm. No hesitation, no mercy. Ney's men advanced with purpose, the embodiment of French martial might and will. With a grim determination, thousands of French soldiers marched towards Friedland. Their objective, the town's capture. The rhythmic beat of drums echoed, a relentless heartbeat accompanying their advance towards the besieged town. A blue tide, Ney's corps surged forward, crashing against the already broken and demoralized Russian left flank. Desperate Russian skirmishers offered resistance, but their brave stand merely delayed the inevitable French onslaught. With a thunderous roar, French soldiers accelerated. The race for Friedland was on, its fate sealed. Through smoke and rubble, the first French troops stormed the barricades, spilling into Friedland's contested streets. Chaos erupted as the French poured in. Russian defenders fought from every window, every shadowed alleyway. The town became a brutal labyrinth of close-quarters combat. Every street, every house, became a killing ground. House by house, room by room, French infantry cleared their path. This was the raw, brutal face of urban warfare. In the smoke-choked streets, man fought man. The desperation of survival fueled every desperate, brutal blow. Forced back from burning structures, the Russian defense fractured further. Retreat was their only desperate option. Friedland burned, a blazing testament to the ferocity. The town itself became a pyre for the trapped Russians. Step by bloody step, the French secured the town. Their banners, symbols of conquest, rose above the burning ruins. The grim truth dawned on Bennigsen: the battle was lost. A desperate, chaotic retreat across the Aller River was ordered. Panic spread like wildfire. Thousands of Russian soldiers surged towards the only escape route, the Alle River. The bridges became choke points of despair. A living tide of men struggled, crushed, to cross the unforgiving river. The French pursuit was merciless. Cavalry charges sliced through the desperate, retreating Russian ranks, unleashing terror. French artillery found new targets. The trapped, retreating masses. A slaughter at the riverbanks now commenced. Thousands plunged into the river, desperate. Many, weighed down by gear and fear, found only a watery grave. Under relentless fire, one bridge buckled. Screams filled the air as scores of soldiers plummeted into the depths. The Aal ran red, choked with the dead. It bore witness to the catastrophic losses sustained by the Russian army. French muskets barked, even at the fleeing. No quarter was given in this brutal, decisive final pursuit. Friedland lay in ruins, a testament to Napoleon's might. The Russian bear was shattered, its power broken here. From the heights, Napoleon surveyed his triumph. Friedland was a masterpiece of destruction, a crushing victory. A tattered flag, buried in the mud, symbolized the utter devastation inflicted upon the proud Russian army. The smoke cleared, revealing a scene of profound destruction. This was the brutal, cinematic end to a grand battle. As the sun set, the echoes of battle faded. Friedland secured Napoleon's dominance, changing Europe forever. The sun rises on a landscape forever scarred. Friedland's aftermath revealed a devastation unimaginable, a true nightmare. The shattered remnants of the Russian army began their grim, desperate retreat. Defeat hung heavy in the air. Scattered across the ravaged fields, the symbols of an army's demise lay testament to the crushing defeat. The brutal fighting at Friedland left an indelible mark on the land and a profound shockwave across Europe. Napoleon's Grande Armée stood victorious, but the cost of this triumph was etched deeply into the very ground. Morale evaporated. The Russian command faced the harsh reality. Their forces were completely broken, utterly defeated. The proud banners of Imperial Russia lay fallen, symbolizing the catastrophic disarray and monumental losses. Thousands upon thousands lay dead or wounded. Friedland was a bloodbath, a catastrophic blow to Russia's military. With no leadership, no order, the Russian army dissolved into a desperate, fragmented flight for survival. Equipment and provisions were abandoned. The once mighty army became a desperate, uncoordinated mass fleeing for safety. Far from the battlefield, Tsar Alexander I received the devastating news. His empire was now critically vulnerable. The reports confirmed his gravest fears. Friedland was not merely a defeat, but an utter, annihilating catastrophe. There were no strategic options left. The once proud Russian war effort had reached its definitive, bitter end. Faced with total ruin, Alexander understood. There was only one path remaining: to sue for a desperate peace. A desperate envoy was dispatched, carrying the Tsar's urgent message. The fate of empires now hung precariously. News of Alexander's plea reached Napoleon. His strategic genius had forced the proud Russian bear to its knees. The emperor, at the pinnacle of his power, saw an opportunity to reshape Europe and secure his eastern flank. The stage was set. From battlefields to diplomatic tables, the power dynamics of Europe were shifting dramatically. On the quiet waters of the Niemen River, a historic meeting would soon redefine the balance of power. A magnificent raft, a neutral ground, was meticulously prepared. It would host the unprecedented encounter of emperors. From opposing banks, the two emperors, symbols of their nations, embarked towards their destiny on the river. The handshake was more than a greeting. It was a moment of profound consequence, a pivotal point in history. On that raft, empires converged. The future of Europe, forged in fire and diplomacy, now rested on their words. After Friedland, a shattered Russian army retreated, leaving behind a devastated landscape and a desperate Tsar. Alexander I, humbled by defeat, faced an agonizing choice: continue a futile war or seek uneasy peace. Napoleon, ever the pragmatist, offered not subjugation, but an audacious proposal: a grand new alliance. The Niemen River became history's stage. On a ceremonial raft, two emperors prepared to redefine Europe's destiny. Rivals met. Napoleon, the conqueror, and Alexander, the humbled Tsar, face to face on neutral waters. Initial talks were tense, yet strategic. Napoleon aimed to convert a vanquished foe into a crucial ally. From this unique encounter emerged the Treaty of Tilsit, a pact that would redraw the very map of Europe. In the town of Tilsit, the terms were finalized, shaping a peace born from conquest and strategic necessity. The war's end brought harsh realities. Prussia, once a great power, was dismembered, stripped of vast territories. New states, like the Kingdom of Westphalia and the Duchy of Warsaw, emerged from Prussia's defeat. The Treaty of Tilsit formally ended the War of the Fourth Coalition, igniting a new geopolitical era. A Franco-Russian alliance, once unthinkable, was forged, binding the two most powerful continental empires. Alexander, seeing opportunity, envisioned shared dominion, a world divided into French and Russian spheres. Central to Napoleon's vision was the continental system, an economic weapon designed to cripple Great Britain. The system demanded all European ports close to British trade, aiming to bleed the island nation dry. Under duress, Russia was compelled to join, severing its vital trade links with Britain, a significant sacrifice. This economic warfare promised immense pressure on Britain, but also created immense strain within Europe. Europe was now largely divided, an uneasy alliance dictating the continent's new, fragile balance of power. Friedland and Tilsit marked the absolute zenith of Napoleon's power, his authority seemingly unchallengeable. He stood as the undisputed master of continental Europe, his word law, his will reshaping nations. The continent's geopolitical map was fundamentally reshaped, reflecting Napoleon's unparalleled military and diplomatic might. A new European order had emerged, forged in conquest and sealed by alliance, yet inherently unstable. Tilsit was a triumph, but its ambitious terms sowed seeds for future conflicts, a peace built on shifting sand. Friedland, 1807. More than a battle, it was a turning point, a testament to ambition and shifting power. Tilsit solidified victory, forging a fragile alliance that redrew the map of Europe, a temporary peace. This was Napoleon's strategic genius at its zenith, outmaneuvering, overwhelming, orchestrating victory with brilliance. Yet, the Russian bear, though bloodied, remained unbowed. Its army demonstrated a formidable, enduring resilience. The Franco-Russian alliance, born of necessity and ambition, promised an era of peace, a monumental, fleeting pact. Friedland and Tilsit marked the undisputed peak of Napoleon's First French Empire. His star shone brightest. But even at its height, the seeds of future challenges were already sown. Ambition breeds its own downfall. Controlling such a vast dominion stretched resources thin. The very size of his empire proved a future burden, for even the greatest empires are built on fragile foundations. History teaches us power is rarely absolute forever. The relentless pursuit of continental dominance would soon lead him eastward, towards an ultimate, devastating challenge. If you found this analysis insightful, please click that like button. Your support helps us create more. Share this epic story with fellow history enthusiasts. Spread the knowledge of these crucial moments. And for more cinematic explorations of military history, subscribe to a leading analysis channel now. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the battles that shaped our world. Until then, stay curious.